Hey, so this is a rarity for me, and this is one of the reasons I love spring break is I can actually do one of these in the sunlight. Normally, 'cause I'm doing them, Friday or Saturday nights sometimes. Uh, it's nice to actually be able to drive around in the daytime. Uh, so this one's a little tough. Um, I kind of feel a lot like the way I felt about Edge of 17, in that for most of it, I was thinking about coming out here and just thinking about just saying all sorts of terrible crap about it. And it's not that there isn't terrible crap, it's that I think as the movie goes on, I think the terrible crap is kind of justified by the story they're telling. Um, but I don't know if that makes it a good movie. I don't think it makes it a good movie. I think it's not a bad movie either. I think it's passable. It's just kind of there. I don't know if it's really. It's nothing that the bad stuff is really worth getting that upset about. The good stuff is goodish, but it's been done better in other places. First of all, I have to acknowledge, and I was kind of thinking of this as I was sitting there watching it. Kind of like with Edge of 17, I kind of have to acknowledge, first off, that I'm not the audience for this, obviously. This is clearly made for the teenage demographic of the late 2000 teens. It's their world, it's their issues, it's their music, it's their culture, and it's meant to kind of tell them something. So being a older person, or so let's just say someone who hasn't seen his teen years in quite a while, I get that some of the things that I didn't like about this film are mainly just because there's a generation gap. Some of those things were not meant to apply to me, whereas they would apply more to young people today. Some of the issues it brings up, the concept of bullying and people changing from where they were. That is something you realize when you hit kind of not just teenagers, but I think any time you're at a point in life where you kind of look back and you have enough wherewithal to look back on life and kind of marvel at not so much where you came from, but how you went from the person you were, the kid, to the adult or a young adult or whatever it may be. So it kind of touches on those issues, and it's the thing, because teenagers are at that age where that's part of what they're starting to do. They're starting to think in those more abstract thoughts, especially when they get to that senior in high school area. That whole looking back at, because a lot of that age group is dedicated to you're not a kid anymore. So you start looking back and kind of realizing the choices you've made and the things you've done, positive and negative, and going on from there. So I think from that point of view, it would really appeal to. I don't know if it would really appeal, but it would make more sense to a young person now than it would to someone like me, especially when you consider that the device it uses to do it, the storytelling device it uses to kind of get that point across, the reliving the day thing over and over and over and over again. It's, in my lifetime especially, it's been done, and it's been done a lot. Groundhog's Day, of course, probably being the most famous example. Pretty much every sci-fi show has done some version of this story. I can just off the top of my head, I know the X-Files did a version of it. I know Star Trek did a version of it. I know Buffy did a miniature version of it. It wasn't the whole episode, but it was a chunk. There was a whole show, didn't last long, starring Eliza Dushku, called True Calling, which the whole premise was her being able to relive the day, not just one day, but whatever. So this is, for people like me, this is not new. This is something that's been done, and that's fine when you do something new with the premise. It's okay to reuse the premise again if something new is being done. And I think, and again, it's something I feel like made the thing kind of worth it, is I think they did. And I think they tried their best to tackle it, again, from the point of view of a young person now, issues and things that they're dealing with and they have to deal with, and did it in a fairly decent way. So, that being said, do I think this movie is good? I don't think it's great. I think there's some issues with it. And then I think one of those issues is, especially in the beginning chunk of the film, it bears those sad telltale marks of a movie about teenagers, about modern day teenagers, written by people who you wonder, have they ever even talked to a teenager? Because the way these kids talk, I mean, it does not sound anything like the way I have heard teenagers talk, and I can say that now with more certainty with the fact that I spend 90% of my time in the company of teenagers, and knowing that they talk differently in front of a teacher than they do in front of each other. But still, I've heard teenagers talk, and it doesn't sound like this. Now, it's possible that they start out that way, very superficial, so that as the young lady who's reliving the day over and over and over again, as she becomes kind of more and more self-aware, if you can kind of see the superficiality being stripped away to understand why people are doing these things. So I get that. I get kind of why they did it. That doesn't make up for bad writing. It doesn't make up for two-dimensional characters. And as much as they tried, this girl's kind of core circle of friends, the four girls and her boyfriend, not the guy she eventually ends up falling in love with, but her boyfriend, they don't do much outside of the typical teen movie cliches that we've seen 100 times over and over and over. I know they try to do something more with it, but I don't think it gets there. And I think with that being kind of one of the core theses of the film, the fact that it doesn't get there, I think that you're starting out from such a superficial place doesn't benefit you trying to make these characters three-dimensional later on. You got to kind of start there. So I think that's kind of the major problem. I think the young lady, Zoe, her name is Zoe something. It almost looks like Zoe Deschanel, the name, but it's not, obviously. I don't know if she's done anything else, but I would almost guarantee she hasn't done anything else where she's been kind of the center point. And with that being said, and that knowledge being said, I think she holds up pretty well. I don't think she's perfect. I think she's got a ways to go before she's Oscar ready. But I think, being the center point of any kind of dramatic story, a TV show, a movie, a play, it's exhausting and it's difficult. You got a long arc you gotta carry, especially when the story is about you. She is always on screen. The story is about her. And I think she does that fairly admirably. Again, I think she's got a ways to go, but I think if she gets in some better films, she works with some good directors, she surrounds herself with some talented people, I think this could be a young lady who's going to go on and do some amazing things. It's also possible she'll just get lost in the shuffle and be kind of like the kids in Scream or when I was a kid, and that we all thought they were going to be great and we haven't heard from half of them, So there's that. But I think she holds up pretty well considering. It's kind of funny, throughout the film she runs the gamut between resembling either interacting or in her physical appearance at any given time either Anna Kendrick, Emma Watson, or Kristen Stewart. You know, it's like she kind of has moments of each of them in her performance, and for both good or ill. But I think, the part. Here's how I can best describe her acting. Is that by the end of the film, I cared about her character. Didn't necessarily, and that was probably the point. That's probably the goal, I would think. Was that by the end you cared about where she ended up and how she got out of the predicament that she was in. So that's about the best I can say about it. And I guess that's pretty good. Saying actually you did care when starting out. I didn't. It took me a long time to give a shit, but I eventually did. There is one thing I've noticed, and this is not just this film, but it's a lot of films I've seen lately. Man, I may just be getting old, but it seems like ever since Suicide Squad, I've become very hyper sensitive to the music choices in movies, and just how they switch songs from every shot almost. And again, part of it is a lot of these are songs I don't know or don't care about anymore, because I stopped kind of caring about music at a certain point. But man, oh man, it just feels like some of these movies I've seen lately, it feels like they've got Tourette's with the music choices. Like they gotta skip songs every 5 seconds, or else don't want to leave. I don't know if it's like a thing that if you leave the song on for too long, you got to pay the full royalties. I don't know, but it's really irritating and obnoxious, and again, it's never really, at least for me, and I can even talk about things like King Kong that I saw, and also Matt and I have been watching Stranger Things. Same thing there. I like 80s music, but it feels like they're trying so hard to make sure they shoehorn in every 80s song they can think of that it gets distracting and it gets annoying, and this one really has that problem. Maybe it doesn't bug teenagers nowadays. I hate to talk about it like they're a different species or like I'm some kind of expert, but I mean, like I said, I spend about 90% of my day in the company of teenagers, observing teenagers, talking to teenagers, and on a lot of days, after I'm done with that, I go to class to learn about teenagers, to learn about how teenagers think and what they're dealing with. And one thing that comes up all the time is that teenagers have much shorter attention spans now, because things just come so quickly. Think about Snapchat and how quick a video on Snapchat is, like 10 seconds. It's like, so they think in much quicker terms. So maybe this constant switching of music is something that appeals to them, but it really doesn't appeal to me. It's like, could you just stick to a song and stay there? So yeah, I think in the end, I think this movie, I think it has good intentions. I think it's actually trying to say something, especially something that's important for a young audience to hear. I just don't think it sticks the landing too well, and I think that maybe it gets a little lost in the self-importance of it all. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's kind of just, it's the best way I can describe this movie. Not terrible. Like I say, it kind of redeemed itself towards the end, just like our hero, but I think they made some fundamental choices that were kind of wrong and didn't help it. And in the end, what you get is another piece of cinema that, again, this sounds crueler than I think I mean it to, but it's like a piece of gum that you've chewed for a while and the flavor is gone. You can still chew it. It's still, it satisfies that oral fixation, and every now and then you get a little squirt of flavor. But I think on the whole, it's just kind of there. Not really hurting anybody, but, you're just going to stick it underneath my theater seat and I don't have to scrape it off later. So, So, if you're a young person, this might be something interesting to watch, because I think it tackles an interesting an interesting concept from your perspective, or tries to do it from your perspective, and dealing with issues that are important to you. If you're someone like me, obviously I don't think it's going to do much for you, just like it kind of didn't do much for me. But I've seen way worse pictures, so sometimes I think I should institute a star policy, like a lot of reviewers do, to kind of round these up, but I'm too lazy. So yeah, I don't know. I can't. I'm not going to recommend it, but I am going to say that if you choose to go see it, which I'm gathering a lot of people haven't, as I think there were 5 people in the theater. I don't think by the end you'll be too disappointed, but I think you'll be more disappointed than if you went and saw like Kong or something like that. So that's me. It's about what I expected, so it didn't let me down or anything. It's pretty much what I expected it to do. So that's this. I think I got one more in me because I know a big one comes out on Friday. So I'm looking to see that sometime and give you my thoughts. It's one one that's had kind of a lot of press lately, both positive and negative. So we'll see how it is. So until then, drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.